33 years ago, Earth was attacked by a mysterious alien race known simply as the Jam. The Jam invaded Earth via the Passageway, a link between Earth and the unknown land of the Jam that appeared over the South Pole. Humanity faced the brink of extinction because the aircraft of the Jam totally outmatched anything the governments of Earth had at their disposal. In light of this, the United Nations established the Earth Defense Forces, which included the very best military personnel from all over the globe, and developed new state-of-the-art aircraft to collectively launch a massive counterattack on the Jam. After a tough battle against the Jam over the South Pole, the Earth's defense forces were able to pass through the large mist of cloud known as the Passageway, and discovered another planet on the other side of this hyperspace portal. This new planet offered a new path for humanity's colonization, a new source of natural resources, but most importantly, it was the land of the Jam who threatened all of humanity. In order to contain the Jam menace, the Earth's defense forces built several military bases in this new planet named Ferry. But the advance of humanity's armies was stopped, and the conflict between Earth and the Jam became a war of attrition on the hostile planet of Ferry. Even after all these 33 years, humanity still doesn't know what the Jam are or what they want. To uncover this and acquire more information on the mysterious enemy, the 5th Squadron of the Special Air Force was created. This elite squadron flies the Super Sylph reconnaissance aircraft, the most powerful aircraft at Earth's disposal, and their sole mission is to observe and obtain data on the Jam, even if that means watching all of their allies die in the process. The pilots who belong to this squadron are known as the Inhuman Humans because of their cold blood and emotional disengagement. And this is the beginning of the Yukikaze series, where we follow the story of Rei Fukai, one of the pilots of the Boomerang Squadron, which is a reconnaissance squadron of the Special Air Force. Now, the Yukikaze series is one of my favorite series. Personally, it's my favorite novel, and it's very similar to Ace Combat, and given what I said so far, and you're still here, you're probably interested in this series. Now, in case you're not familiar with it, I'm gonna do in this video an introduction on where should you go. Should you start with watching the anime of the Yukikaze series, or should you start with the original novel? Now, in this video, I'm gonna do a quick overview on these two pieces of work and tell you where you should start, what are the pros and cons of each one, and I'll try to do this with as little spoilers as possible. So now let's first start with the anime, which is divided into 5 episodes with a total runtime of about 3 hours. Now this is short and it's good enough so you can watch all of them the same day. Now the anime was created in the early 2000s by Studio Gonzo in Japan and was brought to the West by Bandai Entertainment, which is part of today's Bandai Namco. The first episode of the anime aired in 2002 and the last episode in 2005. One really positive point about the Yukikaze anime is the quality of the animation, especially since it was made in the early 2000s. All the dogfight scenes are also rendered in 3D and have a really good amount of detail. The vast majority of the aircraft are also original aircraft and they look good. They look really good. One additional pro of the combat scene is the lack of music or a soundtrack. Now this may sound a bit unusual for me to say because most of the movies and games that I know, they have some sort of music going on in the background, but the Yukikaze anime did really good without music. The sounds of the aircraft and the alarms in the cockpits really added to the tension for the viewer during the combat scenes. As for the non-combat scenes, the anime was mostly done in 2D animation, although you see a little bit of 3D from time to time. Now, personally, I'm not a fan of Gonzo's animation style for the characters, so I would say that the 2D animation was acceptable. I've really enjoyed the sound effects of the planes, and the Japanese voice acting was also good, but I also have you know that most of the dogfight scenes are done in English. And when I mean English, I mean English.
Warning lights check.
Check normal.
Oxygen.
Oxygen check okay.
Oil pressure.
Normal.
Now, in case you're wondering, the anime has been dubbed to actual English, but I've never watched the dubbed version, so I can't say anything about it. But at least the anime has been translated to English. But this is where the strengths of the anime end, because the story of this series isn't really handled well in the anime adaptation. As a matter of fact, you'll probably be more confused by the time you watch the anime than when you started. When I watched the anime for the first time, and this is prior to me reading the novels, I noticed that there's a pretty strong lack of background information and world building, which I think is very important, especially since the universe of this series is very different from reality, and the anime just scratches the surface of the main points of the Yuki-Kaze series, which are the true nature of the gem, which we don't know in the beginning, the ethics of using, you know, unmanned aircraft in combat, or, you know, not having humans there, the relationship between Rei and Yuki-Kaze, and lastly, the people from Earth forgetting about the existence of the gem or their threat. Even when the anime touches on these topics, there is not much attention given nor much discussion, so it's very easy for the viewer not to pick up these topics. However, I should also let you know that you should really watch the scenes after the credits. It's kind of like Marvel, because that will help your understanding of the series. Now, I should also talk about the ending of the anime. I don't want to give spoilers, but I didn't really like, because it's a very ambiguous ending, and I'm still confused as to what happens at the very end, and I'm not 100% sure if I understood what happened there, but that's where the anime is. Basically, the visual is really good, the music, or the lack of music, and the sound effects are also very good, but the story isn't handled very well in the anime adaptation. Now let's talk about the novels. There are currently 3 books in the Yuki-Kaze series, and they were all written by the Japanese sci-fi writer Johei Kambayashi. The first book, it's called Yuki-Kaze, and was written in the mid-1980s, and has had a couple of different editions published. The second one, it's called Good Luck Yuki-Kaze, and it was published in the early 2000s. The anime was based in these first 2 novels, but there's also a third book called Unbroken Arrow that has been released in Japan, I think in 2009, but unfortunately it hasn't been translated to English. The first novel is about 300 pages and the second one about 420 pages. And despite the complexity of some of the topics covered in these novels, the novels are really easy to read, although you should have some basic aviation knowledge and vocabulary. The first novel has a really good introduction of the Yuki-Kaze universe, has a very detailed lore and world building content. There's even an annex in the first book that is a fact sheet of the Super Sylph, which is the main aircraft in the first part of the story, which includes some general information, specifications, avionics, weapons, and some other stuff. Now, the beginning of the anime and the book is the same, but needless to say, the books, they have much more content, much more happens in the book, and actually the order of how things happen, it's different between the anime and the book. But probably more important, the book goes really in depth and discusses like the ethics of employing unmanned weapons in the fight against the gem. It's really rich in the lore content and the details of the Fairy Air Force, the politics of Earth, the defense of Earth against the gem, how the different governments they reacted or respond to the gem threat, and really explains well the relationship between Rei and Yuki-Kaze. Now, to give you an idea of this book, and this is a minor spoiler, so if you wanna skip, you can click this timer there, so you don't get it. So, in this story, there's a System Corps which is part of the Earth's defense forces. So the System Corps is deployed in Faerie, and basically what they do is they develop new aircraft and weapons to help with the war effort against the Gem. Now, of course, to develop an airplane or the new weapons, they spend months, years with that really good high tech, and then when they introduce to the front lines, they are successful. They think they're gonna break through the Gem's defenses, but this only lasts like 2 days, because then the Gem introduced another aircraft that can just match the new aircraft from Earth. So there's this assumption that the characters they have is that, is the Gem really losing this war because they want to lose this war? Is that in their plans? Because they just have this speed and technological advance that completely matches what we have in just a matter of days or hours. So it's really interesting on how this works. There's a lot of things going on in this book. Like seriously, you think so much in this book that you need fans to cool off your head because of the thinking that you do. Now, another example that I'm gonna give, and this was, I think, part of the worst part of the book, the only part that I thought it was boring. It talks about the story of a guy who's not even a main character. It's just a guy that cleans the runway from the snow, and you're like, why am I looking at the story of this guy? Why is this heading? I don't care if he drinks vodka all day and his life is a misery. But then something happens to him. I'm not gonna say what it is. And then they go over to talk to the central computer, which is a main character in the book, but doesn't get too much attention in the anime. And there's this huge revelation of what happened about the guy that cleaned the runway, which is like, whoa! You think like, wow. And this book really makes you think about ethics. It really makes you think and explains well in detail what happens, including some parts of the anime which are not explained at all. But to put it short, the book does an amazing job in explaining all the details. I've read the books. There are only very few things I picked up that do not make sense or inconsistencies, but that's because I take a lot of attention because, well, I do that kind of stuff anyways. But these two books, these are my favorite novels ever. They're really well done. Even the boring part, it's part of a revelation that's very important. And the only bad thing is it doesn't have any pictures or maps, because that's something I like, to be able to visualize a little bit. The combats, they are described well, given that I watched the anime, it helps a little bit. But yeah, there's no weakness in the book. So let's go now. Where should you start with, I said, with the anime and the book? Let's summarize everything. So personally, I believe, if you can, I think you should watch the anime first, so you get an overall introduction to the series, to the universe, and you're able to visualize the planes, the characters. You have a good understanding of what are they. But here's the thing, when you finish watching the anime, you're not gonna understand anything. You're not supposed to understand it. That's the thing. You're probably more confused. Then I recommend you to read the book after. Start, of course, by Yukikaze, and then Good Luck Yukikaze, which is gonna clear up and enrich your mind of the lore and some of the stuff that will happen in the anime, but that was not explained. Now, of course, keeping in mind, maybe you have a budget constraint, and if you have one, if you can only pick the anime or the book, I say for sure, go for the book, because that's the best experience. I think the anime is just an introduction to the series. And if you enjoy the anime, despite not understanding the story, you're gonna love the book. The book really is the best, in my opinion. But I think it's fairly cheap for you to buy both the book and the anime. I think the books are under $10 on Amazon. So I highly encourage you to do both, if you can. But if you cannot, go for the book for sure. Anyways, guys, this is the video. This is the introduction to the Yukikaze series. I hope this has helped you clear a bit on what Yukikaze is about. I'll be making more videos about Yukikaze to explain the lore because there's so much stuff to be explained. It really is an amazing series, and just like Ace Combat, Yukikaze makes you think, probably think more than Ace Combat makes you think, into some ethics or war topics. It really raises your IQ levels. Now, if you want to help support my channel, I also put the link in the description of where you can buy the books. It's from Amazon. If the price is good for you, please buy there because I get a little bit of a commission, and that comes at no additional cost for you, and it just helps, you know, the channel. But if you find another place, you buy in another place, just buy the books. They are really good. You will not forget me after you read the book. I hope I have introduced it to you because I'm sure you're gonna love it, given that you're here from Ace Combat most likely, but it's an amazing novel that is underrated. Anyways, thank you guys for watching, and see you next time with more Yukikaze videos.